Hi, hello, it's Nikki and welcome to my messy bookshelf. Today I'm here with the train tag, and this is a tag that was created by AlansReads in conjunction with the March on the Rails event that's taking place in March. And that is an event that I wish that I had known about before I went and committed myself to so many other events that are going on this month. But it looks very fun, and I was tagged by Pat from BookChatWithPat and Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems. So thank you so much, my friends, for the tag. It does look like a fun one. And so this tag is it's 8 prompts, and all of the prompts are the title of a book, short story, or play that is about trains or features trains in some way. And they are prompts that are paired with a book of your choice. So I'll just get into the prompts. And the first prompt is The Great Railway Bazaar, a book featuring an epic journey. And I chose a book that is about the most epic journey that I could possibly imagine. That is nonfiction. And that is The Travels of Marco Polo by Marco Polo. And this is Marco Polo's travelogue, travel diary, if you will, that talks about he recorded all of his travels in, I think it was the year 1298. It was the late 1200s. And as far as I know, it remains the only travel diary of a European in Asia during the Middle Ages. So it is fascinating. I've actually never made it completely through the book, but I have returned to it again and again and read certain chapters, and it is fascinating to see a first-hand account of these countries and places along the way while he was traveling, because it was several years of travel. So fascinating, and I love a good epic journey. So that is the first one. The next prompt is Brief Encounter, Still Life, a brief or short book you could read while waiting for a train. And I forgot to mention, the tag does say you get extra points if you include a book that features trains. And boy, do I have a short book that is a page turner, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, a book I've mentioned many times on my channel. The first Agatha Christie book I ever read, and it is chilling. It is short, relatively short, and it is one that the first time I read it, I read in one sitting. And there are people who travel on a train in this book, and it's all about 10 strangers who are gathered on a very mysterious island and are picked off one by one. And it is still one of my favorite Agatha Christie books ever. Prompt number 3 is Bradshaw's Guide, a guidebook to a favorite place or thing. So I could not find a guidebook to a place on my shelves, and I'm actually pretty surprised about that. But I did choose a guidebook for a favorite thing, and that is baking. And I have here How Baking Works. And this is, it's not a narrative, it is a guidebook, and it basically talks about how different ingredients interact with other ingredients and why they interact the way that they do. So it's pretty fascinating if you are into cooking, specifically baking, because any tiny little thing that you change or introduce has such an effect. So this is my guidebook here. My guidebook to baking. All right. The next prompt is Breakheart Pass, a romance novel or western. Bonus points for a romantic western, and I don't actually have one of those. So I chose a gothic romance, and this is The India Fan by Victoria Holt, and she writes gothic romance. And this one is set during the Victorian era, and the East India Company is occupying India. And a governess travels to India to take care of 2 children for a family friend, a sort of someone that she went to school with. And typical gothic romance, the governess falls in love with not in this case the master of the house, but someone close to the master of the house. So I really love these stories, and actually I do believe there's train travel in this one as well. I wish more people would pick these old books up because they are so worth it. Some of them are dated, but you know, worth it in my opinion. The next one is Thomas the Tank Engine, a beloved children's book. And the one that I chose was The Railway Children by Edith Nesbit. And this is a beloved book in our house. I read it to my daughter when she was very, very small. And she actually has it on her little audio, she has an audiobook reader, a little device that specifically only reads audiobooks out loud, and she falls asleep every night to one. And this was a very popular one for her. And yes, this was a favorite of yours. All right. So The Railway Children is about a family, a well-to-do family in England, and one night the father of the family is mysteriously taken in the middle of the night. And the mother and the children have to relocate because they no longer have the father's income. So they relocate to a small village near some train tracks and a train station. And the children become very familiar with the train tracks, the workers and people who frequent the train station, and the trains that come through their little village. And one day they are able to save a train that is traveling on those train tracks. Love this book very much. And yes, like I said, it's a favorite in our house. All right. The next one is The Signalman, a ghost story or a horror novel. I should mention, I was about to say something about The Signalman. Thomas the Tank Engine terrified me when I was a kid. Terrified me when I was a kid. I don't know why. I just always found him creepy. But anyways, prompt number 6 is The Signalman, which is a fantastic short story that I read for the first time around Halloween of 2025. And I probably would have chosen that book for this prompt. But it is a ghost story or a horror novel. And the book that I ultimately ended up choosing was one I don't hear anyone really talking about, and I think I missed when it was very popular because I tend to read a lot of backlist. But this is The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, and this is set also, I believe, in the Victorian era. And a young married woman is sent to her husband's country estate while she is pregnant, awaiting the birth of their child. And some things are going on at this country estate. There are angry villagers, very angry with the family and not friendly whatsoever. And there are some goings on in the house, in the manor house. And there is a locked door. And this young woman decides to go exploring this locked room, and some creepy things occur. And I will say this is one of the few books that has creeped me out as much as it did in the last couple of years. For sure. I was actually scared a little bit when I read this book, but I actually loved it. It was quite disturbing. All right. The next one, prompt number 7, Strangers on a Train, a new book that you hope to read this year, and it doesn't have to be published this year. So, the one I chose for this prompt. Backstory, or something you should know. I rarely pre-order a book. And of the 2 books I can think of in the last 2 or 3 years that I have pre-ordered, this is one of them. And I still haven't read it. So I am very ashamed of that. But this book is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. And this is one of the prequels to the Hunger Games trilogy, which I loved. And I did read the first prequel book. And this one follows Haymitch. I think that's the name. Haymitch. A character that I loved from the Hunger Games. And yeah, I still haven't read it. So I would like to get to this one this year. And then I will have read all of the books in the Hunger Games world. So yeah, why did I pre-order it and then not read it? I don't know. Okay. The next prompt, or the last prompt, is The Mystery of the Blue Train, a book I love. A book with a color in the title or on the cover. And I had a little bit of trouble with this one, trying to find a book with a color in the title. And the book I ultimately chose was Scarlet by Alexandra Ripley. And this is the sequel to Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind. And obviously this was not written by Margaret Mitchell, but Alexandra Ripley did have permission from the Margaret Mitchell estate. And this book follows Scarlett O'Hara after the events that occurred in Gone with the Wind. And I absolutely loved this book. It is a bit of a chunker, but it was so worth it. If you liked Gone with the Wind, I think you would like this. I think it's pretty down the middle. Some people don't like what they did with Scarlett. I did. So this book follows Scarlett as she goes on a journey of self-reflection and looking for her roots after, like I said, the events in Gone with the Wind. And I absolutely loved this book. I've never heard anyone talk about it, but again, this is rather an old book. So I would love to hear if you've read any of these books, because I know I do tend to talk about books that are not popular anymore. But yeah, those are the prompts. And the last actual prompt is to tag others, and I will tag some friends below. But I really love this tag, and I really hope to participate in March on the Rails next year, and I will be prepared. But I thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.